Sangram, welcome to the Andy Storch Show.
I love it, man. Andy, how you doing?
I am doing fantastic, man. This is so exciting for me. It's one of those weird things that you and I were just talking about this, but I think we followed each other on LinkedIn for probably close to a year now. You are prolific on there, not just because you're posting content, but you're out there doing a lot of stuff. You've got a very popular podcast in Flip My Funnel. You've got speaking engagements going on at your own conference. You've got a book that just came out, and I imagine you're running a business. There's tons of stuff going on, and you find time to post about all these things and engage in other people's content because you're always supporting mine as well. And I really appreciate that. I've learned a lot from you, and so I'm excited to have you on here to actually talk live.
Thanks, Andy. And obviously, it's mutual respect right there. I feel like we are in this unprecedented time right now where I wish I could learn from others, and I think it's possible. So I think as I'm going through my own journey, I feel like I'm fumbling, failing, and trying different things every day. And thank you that LinkedIn post from 2 days ago doesn't show up anymore because it's gone. It's allowing me to live life in at a moment, but at some point there's a history and a trail. So I feel like, whoever is coming next, they can see that and learn from that and go from that. So I feel like it's very intentional, at least on my part, to make sure that I just share things that I'm learning as they come and not wait for like some magic moment to happen in life to do it.
Yeah, I want to get into your story, but one thing I want to say there and ask you about, I really admire that you have such a growth mindset, for lack of a better way to put it, that you have this very humble mindset that you're just learning and trying things along the way. I try to do the same thing. I post about that often and try to stay very humble because I really do feel like I'm just figuring stuff out and following people like you and trying things and failing and learning. How and where did that mindset come from for you?
I think a lot of it is, I wonder if it comes from just being an immigrant, right? Like, for me, I came to the States when I was 25. And that's kind of an odd age to come in and try to figure out, because you're supposed to work and know a whole bunch of things. And I didn't even go to school here. So for me, I just started to put myself out there to do, and man, like it was rough for the first few years in the beginning to even understand what's going on around me. I remember when I went to do my master's, that's why I came here to do my master's from University of Alabama. And I remember the teacher or one of the ladies I was talking to, she was like, I was asking her about, hey, what kind of assistantship or things that we can do? I'm just trying to look for some job here on campus. And she said in a Southern accent, I'm not the sharpest pencil in the box. And I'm like, I don't see a box. I don't see pencils. What's going on? Right.
Yeah.
So I have no idea what she's talking about. And then she laughed and I laughed. And my friend, this is 2002, gave me a list of, this is VHS files. Like, I don't know how many people are like, no, it's not DVD. It's not YouTube. It's VHS file, like big, bulky black things. And they gave me recordings of Everybody Loves Raymond, Seinfeld, and I think Friends.
Yeah.
And they said, watch this. And I bench watched this for 2 days. So even when bench watching wasn't a thing, I did that in 2003. And they said, you will know everything you need to know about America.
Right.
And
American culture right there.
So it's funny. And I think so. All of that, I feel like, is all of it comes from like, man, there is no option B. This is it, right? Like, I'm here. I got to do this thing. I got to start. There's no way to go down. I'm at the lowest possible place. I had $350 to come in and start my life. So that's it. So when you are in that mind, I think you have no other choice but to learn and grow.
Yeah, I love that. And, you're going to figure things out. And I think it's funny. And I hear that a lot I've been lucky to be able to travel around the world and work with a lot of people from different countries. And I hear a lot about how people in countries, especially outside of Europe, where English is often taught in schools, but how they often learn English and about American culture by watching those TV shows, right? And learning the language. And Seinfeld has been a lot of this, one of the best, if not the best show of all time, great writing, and sort of defines the 90s in the United States. But also I could see watching that and being like, why is everybody in America so neurotic? This is just crazy.
Well, and that's the stereotypical view of, right. When I came here, I had a stereotypical view of America. Like, all right, I watched a whole bunch of movies when I was growing up,
Yeah.
and like, well, it's gonna have skyscrapers and Las Vegas and all the slot machines and fast cars and maybe
Right.
strip clubs, right? Like, I mean, that's all you see in the
Right.
movies. When you come here, you realize, no, America is, at least from my perspective, it is truly one of the best countries in the world because of the people there are. And I was fortunate. Now I feel like it. I didn't realize it at that moment, but I was fortunate enough to be in the South and in Tuscaloosa. And oh my goodness, I learned about the culture around a lot of different things. And I feel
Mhm.
people open their houses. I remember one day one person was holding the door, and that person was probably 80 years old, and I was across the street, and he was holding the door for almost 40 seconds for me, and I couldn't understand why would that person do that. And so I feel like I learned so much from the South of like holding the door for the next person to come in,
Yeah.
and I hope I do even 1% of what that person did for me that day.
Oh, that's so nice. And as you're talking about learning about American culture from movies, I'm thinking, what if I moved to India and all I watched were Bollywood films? I would just think that everybody is dancing and singing everywhere I go. And then I would get there and be so disappointed,
Yeah,
probably.
it would be so different, right? A lot of people watch like Slumdog Millionaire and think that that's all it is. And I'm like, no, it is like a I mean, it's just like anything. It's just a part of the world. And it is what it is.
I remember when that movie came out, a fantastic film, but was working at an insurance company and had an Indian girl who reported to me and we were good friends. And she was like adamant, like that is not Indian culture. That is not what it's like. She was just like angry
Yeah.
about that movie. It was so
Yeah.
funny. Well, I want to get to more of your story because like you made this big change, right? You came over to get the master's degree, and was the whole plan to stay? And then do you need to get a job to stay after that?
No, my brother was here in late 99, 2000, and obviously, September 11th happened, so he had to come back to India, and and the world economy crashed in
Mm.
2002, right? So he said, look, you're not going to find a job. It's not a great time, but there is something about American culture that you should learn, and it is a great time to go there and do this, like just spend 2 years learning as opposed to finding a job. So that's why I came to the States, and I thought I'll go back afterwards, but man, I fell in love with everything around me. Like, it's my home now.
And did you need to get a job to get a visa to continue to stay, or did you have some other situation?
Well, once you do masters, you get like a year long like work permit, and you
Mm.
can find a job within that. And I was lucky enough to get a job at Deloitte Consulting. So I spent like a couple of years at Deloitte. I learned a lot about like travel and strategy, and so it was a really awesome exposure. And then kind of about after that, you definitely have companies have to sponsor. And so I'm fortunate now. I actually got my green card this year. So I was on visa until like pretty much this year.
Wow. Okay. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And you're an entrepreneur now, so you don't necessarily have other companies to sponsor you as you're running your own business, right? So you worked at Deloitte, which I've done a lot of work with. You went to ExactTarget and Pardot and Salesforce through acquisitions, which I've done some work with as well. We were talking about that before. But eventually you left to run your own business, and you did that not only as an immigrant with work, on work visas, but also a young family. And I think you said you had one child, another one on the way. What is that story?
Oh man, that's a fascinating story of my wife. And I think a lot of people just say, "Oh no, you have a great spouse." No, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here. Like it's like that simple and straightforward. So I was at Salesforce. Obviously, if you're at Salesforce, you're actually doing pretty good. And we went through the acquisition of Pardot, ExactTarget, and Salesforce. So it was a really interesting experience, probably the best experience I could have asked for, based in Atlanta. And as I got exposed to this opportunity with Terminus to co-found, it was just, I felt like this is it. This is my calling. And at that time, I was 36, right? 35, 36. We had a son. He was 5 at that time, and we just had our daughter Kiara, and she was about 3 to 4 weeks. And I go back after having shrimp cocktails with my 2 soon-to-be co-founders of Terminus. I go home and tell my wife at 11 o'clock, when she's just done nursing the baby, like, hey, you know, I want to go do this thing with these two people I just met. I feel like they would be phenomenal co-founders. I want to do this thing. And I'm not going to make enough money, if any. So you need to go find a job so we can pay the bills and keep things going. And I knew her for 14 years because we were like, you know, we knew each other from a long time.
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, I'm going to go sleep on the couch. And that was the conversation that night. And then a week or 2 weeks of this really tough conversation among ourselves, because I didn't want to do anything without her being with me on this.
Wow, you needed her on board for that, of course.
100%, right? But I was very convinced that this is it, kind of calling it, no matter what. I didn't even care, good or bad. It's just like, I have to do this. If I don't do this, like, you know, there are moments in life where you just feel that. And she said to me, Andy, and I tell you, this is like the biggest lesson for life for anybody who's trying to do this. She looked at me in the eye and say, Sangram, I know you want to do this. And if you don't do this, you're going to regret. And I don't want you to regret.
Yeah.
Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to go find a job, and that will put food on the table, and we'll take care of the family. I'll take care of the kids. You go do this thing. But in 1 year, if this thing does not have legs, you're going to go find a real job. And that's it, period.
Yep.
To me, that was like a, you know, it's such a fire underneath me, because to me, that just meant that she just delivered a baby, and she's gonna, in 6 weeks, she was on a job, and our kid was in a daycare, like, and she is doing all these things purely because of me and for my crazy aspiration right now. And I'm coming home every day with no paycheck, with a big smile, because I'm happy and excited about what I'm doing. And she's, you know, doing a job and taking care of the house and the kids. So that, I mean, as you probably know, we did like 6 Flip My Funnel events in the first year. Like, no company does 6 events in a year.
Yeah.
We did that because I had no choice. Like, I felt like this has to exist.
Right.
Otherwise, I have to go find a job.
What was the pull towards that? Like you said, you were already in a great job and sort of like a dream job, if you will. You know, you kind of made it. You worked for this big tech company in America. What was the draw? Was it just these two co-founders convinced you, or did you have a pull towards entrepreneurship? Did you have, I know you came from India, which has a very entrepreneurial culture. Was that part of your family? Like, what was the draw?
Definitely not part of the family. Definitely
Okay.
not a cultural thing, or none of my friend circle at that time had anything like this. But I always felt that there was part of me where I would do great at whatever job I have, but I would be this kind of trying crazy stuff. Like, I've always been like, so I'm the youngest in my family. So, and we have a joint family. So there were like 5 kids, and I'm the 5th one. So I always had this crazy stuff going on where I'm just doing things or trying to do things that just not status quo. And I'll always get in trouble because of that. So even when I joined companies like Pareto and Salesforce, I'm trying to do things that has never been done even at Salesforce before, which drove people crazy. But at some point I felt like, well, that just speaks to me that I got to try something. And when I met Eric Spett and Eric Vass, the co-founders of Terminus, the original co-founders of Terminus, I just fell in love with the fact that they already had some of the basics of technology, and neither of them are marketers. So for me, it was like, oh, this is like fantastic. One of the co-founders is all they care about is developing amazing tech. Another one wants to just run the business, run the finance, run all the tech part of it. And I'm the marketing sales guy. It's a problem that I face. I just felt like this was God sent. Has to be something that we do together. Now, we went through a lot of challenges as 3 co-founders you would expect to go through, but I just felt a deep calling that I just couldn't deny. Like, it was so clear to me. I can't explain that.
Yeah. So you jumped into the business, big risk with a new family and everything. I love it. Was there any fear in that moment, or did you just feel so pulled and so confident that you had to take a shot?
I mean, I wouldn't say confident at all by any stretch. It was even the Flip My Funnel, like, just to tell that story.
Yeah.
When we started Terminus, within the first 3 months, I'm just thinking through, is like, okay, We think ABM is a really cool idea. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody knows us. We are based in Atlanta, first time co-founders, like really don't have a whole bunch of pull here to do. We don't have millions of dollars raised. It's really hard to build this category thing. And I didn't even understand what category meant, quite honestly, until in the early days. So I went to San Francisco to attend Scott Brinker's SmartTech conference. And on the flight back, the Wi-Fi didn't work. The two people who were sitting next to me were kind of drunk. And so I had was like a pen and paper, and I was drawing the old funnel, and I just, out of just curiosity or boredom, flipped it and say, what if it was flipped funnel? And what if we were doing everything wrong? And I just drew a flipped funnel. So by the time I landed, which is 5-hour flight, I wrote a quick blog that we posted on LinkedIn as soon as this is like 5 years ago, and you can still see it. And people just jumped on it, say, this is awesome. This is a better way to do it. And I'm like, huh, that's interesting. So I literally went and bought a domain for $8. And I realized is if we went in the market with this idea of a product, like we have the best product, we're going to have a hard time because we don't have any pedigree of great entrepreneurship. But if we went in the community and said, hey, we have this problem that less than 1% of the leads turn into customers. It has been talked about by Forrester and Gartners and others. Let's figure out a way to solve this problem. Hundreds of people would join in to support that cause. So Flip My Funnel became a way to talk about the problem. And we still today, we don't talk about the product. We have a booth just like everybody else. We even invited competitors to speak at the conference to build it and make it bigger. And every single person, I remember doing videos for like Megan Eisenberg and Jill Raleigh. I didn't really personally know any of them at that time, but saying that, hey, look, I want you to come and speak at this conference because it's about how do you challenge the status quo of marketing and sales. No product pitch, nothing about Terminus. It didn't even say Terminus anywhere. And we had like 10 sponsors for the first conference. And that became the thing that we just kept doing after over and over again. So all that to say is that I just realized that the thing we talk about the podcast is without a community, you're simply a commodity. And it was never more clear to me in that moment. Was like, wow, all these people would show up only because it's a community. If I did a Terminus thing only, now I can, but at that point we couldn't.
Without a community, you are simply a commodity. I love that. And I love how you made it into more of a movement than just a company. You started with a strong point of view and inviting competitors in, really approaching it with an abundant mindset that if we just all grow this together, we'll have plenty of business versus, the scarcity mindset of we need to keep all competitors out of here. Don't try to help anybody else. That's a tough thing to do. You don't see a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners doing that. I'm curious how you marketed and got people to these events. Man, it's a little selfish question because I'm organizing my first conference later this year. And how you got that such an abundant mindset of like, hey, we're just going to invite competitors. We don't care. And things will be fine.
Well, I mean, it goes back to like being the fifth in the family. You just do things that are not conventional in sense.
Yeah.
But it was selfish at the same time because I didn't have enough people following me, or people were not like 5 years ago. There was nothing that I did that was like, oh, wow, we're going to go watch Sangram. So for me, it was important. Like at that time, John Miller just, came out of Marketo so he had a great pedigree. Jill Raleigh, everybody knew her. Megan Eisenberg has been one of the top CMOs. So we just figured out like, hey, why don't we just bring these people who have millions of followers, and then if they come in and if we get them to promote this conference, then people will show up. And really that's kind of was our strategy. Get the right people to be speaking on the stage, give them the platform. They already were talking about this in a different way, and they were more than happy to promote it. And once they saw that it was really not about Terminus, it was about the problem, they signed up to come. And we literally went like the gospel of ABM from city to city. Like we went through Texas, like Austin, Chicago, Seattle, like San Francisco, DC. We just took the same group of people and we just spoke at different locations, and we got people to talk about it. Instead of they coming to us because nobody knew us, we went to them for the first 2 years. And when it became a real thing, now we are only doing once a year conference in Boston to bring everybody together.
Yeah, and I saw you just combined with some other conferences as well to make like a mega conference on marketing and B2B sales, which is pretty awesome. Which again, more abundance. You're joining forces with people. You're not worried about competitors or competing with anyone, just kind of furthering the cause. And I think almost like a rising, what do they say, rising tide raises all boats, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think I think it's like with anything. When you don't see a lot of people do what you're doing, I think it just shows people like, you know what, you have a different point of view. And I've always believed that at the end of the day, the best product is going to win, and there is enough in the marketplace to have different things. We didn't really have anything very clearly defined, like here's exactly how our product and roadmap is going to be. We just knew and fell in love with the problem. So to say that we have to have the audacity to say that, hey, look, we're going to put stuff together and only our customers and our people should show up, I just felt we would have failed. I don't know if we would have actually been here today talking about this stuff. And if you think about category leaders, think about HubSpot, created Inbound. Think about Salesforce, created Dreamforce. Think about Gainsight, created Pulse. You think about Drift, created Hypergrowth. Terminus, creating Flip My Funnel. If you really think about this, this is almost a blueprint of category leadership. Leadership is driven by, in my view, community and not by company. Company is to underwrite the cost and the effort it takes to build a community, but communities is what all these companies have built, not products. Product is just a byproduct.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. You're giving me so many ideas to think about my own stuff here. But let me make sure we clear this up for our listeners. What is the problem? What is the movement about? What the Flip My Funnel movement? What is ABM, and what are you trying to help people with in B2B and change?
All right. So I'll give it a quick, 30-second boiler pitch on this. So the problem that marketing and sales in B2B, if you're a B2B, person, leader, you would probably know that there's this traditional funnel where we expect a lot of people to come in, and then over a period of time, we'll qualify them and then further figure out if they're ready to buy and if it's the right time to buy, if they can pay the money to buy. And it just dwindles down to this idea of like less than 1% of the leads turning to customers. This is data point, a stat indisputable by many analysts right now. So, which in another way says 99% of what marketing and sales works on doesn't drive revenue. And that is a horrific stat to really think about. So the idea with Flip My Funnel and Terminus is really that what if you just start with the best fit accounts? What if you're in B2B and if you don't know your total addressable market, don't even start marketing, because it makes no sense. You need to really take the time. If you sell to financial services companies and in Fortune 500, guess what? There are only so many companies you should go after. You shouldn't have to go after any. You're not selling a Nike shoe that the world is your customer. There are only a certain set of companies, and within that, you can't even get every company. If everybody showed up at your door to buy from you, the reality is you don't even have the infrastructure to support them. So let's be realistic about it. Find the companies you want to really go after, focus on them, and then figure out a way to start engaging them on the terms they care about. If that might be digital advertising, that might be direct mail, that might be all different kind of things, and then turn them into advocates. So the problem is too many leads, not enough customers. Flip that around, start with the best fit customers so you already know who you're going after, and then just focus on the engagement with only that. So it's instead of quantity, you're going after quality.
I really like that. And it kind of jives a little bit. Tell me if I'm wrong or right here with the Pareto Principle, the 80-20 rule, that 80% of your business is coming from 20% of your customers for most of the time. 80% of your problems are coming from 20% of your customers, right? And it sounds like probably more than 80% of your leads are not going anywhere because they weren't really qualified or the right kind of leads or the best kind of customers anyway. And that you should really be focused more on who are those most likely to buy from you that will be great customers, and just focus all your energy on that instead of a wide sweeping marketing campaign to try to get everybody into this big funnel and then see who trickles down.
Totally. I think and the stat really is not 80, but 99% of the leads that marketing and sales are creating are not turning into customer. It sounds crazy, but that's just the truth, because marketing is spending and sales is spending too much time on people and companies that are not even a good fit. So hence the cost of the ramp time, hence the cost of you needing to have 10 times more pipeline, because you're not confident that you can even close 10% of these deals. So you need 10 times the pipeline in order to cover for the potential customer that you may have. It's all backwards in my view.
Oh, so interesting. All right. And then I want to talk about marketing a little bit, and particularly social media and building a personal brand, something that I'm fascinated with and I'm always studying, trying things, trying to get better at. I see you as someone that has really invested a lot of time and done well with building that brand. You've got the Flip My Funnel podcast. You post almost daily on LinkedIn, videos, all kinds of different things. You're giving a lot of value. I know this, and you're interacting with others. I know this takes a lot of time as well. What is your personal philosophy or view on building a personal brand and how that helps you with the business?
Well, I mean, I actually hate the word personal brand, quite honestly.
Let's start with that then.
Yeah, because I feel that that itself means that it is about you, right? And I didn't get into putting it out there for me, and it sounds maybe not authentic, but it's really like if you know me, I think you would get that.
Yeah.
So if you don't know me, maybe you need to go look at my LinkedIn, because I'm a very transparent guy. So I think I've started to see a lot of people get into LinkedIn and other places trying to be somebody they're not, and calling that as their personal brand. And I'm like, no, it actually is just be you.
Yeah.
And you don't
your personal brand is you.
Yeah. So don't try to brand that, just be you. And if you do you, then it will manifest itself into it. So that's why I don't have a Sangram Here podcast. I have a Flip My Funnel podcast, because it's about the community I want to serve. The LinkedIn stuff, it's just it doesn't take you to anything. We just started a LinkedIn community now on LinkedIn. There are like already about 500 people now in that community talking about challenges and stuff. So I am fully vested into helping companies and people solve a problem. And that's pretty much it. So as I'm learning, I'm sharing. I'm not talking and trying to sell them Terminus. You would hardly hear me talking about, hey, here's what Terminus software does. I think people who are curious and are the right fit will find me and figure this thing out. But my job is to just live life at a moment's notice and just do the best and add value in the process. And if that creates a personal brand, great. But I'm not going to lose my sleep on number of likes and number of comments, on anything, because that's what happens when people think about personal brand. They want to quantify, they want to see results, and they want to see engagement. Well, that's why I have a repulsive reaction to a personal branding philosophy, because I think people are being inauthentic around who they are, and it doesn't help them build a personal brand.
Oh man, I am with you 100%. We probably differ a little bit about what we want to do with our own personal brand. I'm happy to develop my own personal brand. I have my face on both of my podcast logos, so obviously we might be going a little different there. But everything we both do, I think, is all with the idea of giving value to others, trying to help others. I'm not overly promotional on my stuff because people don't want to see that. They don't care about that. And to your point, and I've kind of come to this realization recently too, is, if they want to do business with you and they see your stuff, they can click once to get on your profile and find your website and get in contact with you. It's really not that hard. So you don't have to push people. But at the same time, you are trying to grow a business and a movement and a brand. So, for you, it is more about the movement and growing the company, but what's the general strategy on how you build that? Like I said, I know you got the podcast and you're posting a lot on LinkedIn. How do you see that as part of your overall marketing or sales strategy?
I think it is at the end of, I don't typically sit in a room and try to figure that part out, quite honestly.
Okay. Well, that's good to know, because I have no idea what I'm doing too. So I'm just trying to learn from you, man.
So nothing that I do is like, oh, I've been thinking about this for a year and here we go. Even the book we wrote, 3 months into it, because we already had, so it's like, if you could, I think the bottom line is consistency creates massive outcomes. Like, I just totally believe in that. Consistency creates massive outcomes, which means that whatever you do, you just do that consistently and you will figure out things in it. So for example, like we just finished about 400 episodes on the podcast, right? And lately, I'm only doing one episode, and all the other daily episodes are actually run by the people in the community. So I'm not even running my own podcast right now. It's like I'm doing one interview a week, and the other 4 days are other people interviewing other people, and spreading the word. And that's why it's getting like in the top 50 and whatever. All that stuff is happening because it makes sense. So I didn't come up with a strategy 2 years ago. One day I'm going to give it away to the community. Like, no, it's just like, oh, this is interesting. Let's just figure out how this works. So I feel like if people do whatever they're trying to do consistently, if they're writing LinkedIn, do it daily, like, because it just turns into a habit. And before you know, you have enough, and you see what's work, what doesn't work. You start experimenting with different types of video. I started to do more now, video plus like PDF files, so people can click through it. And okay, this is interesting. Oh, they started LinkedIn Live, so I've started a Friday 2 p.m. LinkedIn Live. And this allows me to engage directly. Oh, now there's so many people on LinkedIn. Let's try groups. So 2 weeks ago, we just launched LinkedIn groups. And now there are, as I said, like about 500 people in it. All these things to me is this mindset of just continuously learning and testing it. And it's okay to fail, because if you're not, you don't know enough. And whatever you do, just do it consistently. Don't just flake in and out. So I'm not on Snapchat. I'm not on Facebook. I am hardly on Twitter. I don't even know how to use Instagram. So like, here I am. All I do is LinkedIn, because I just chose that to be a platform right now for me to do what I do. And I'm learning it the best I can. And I'm trying to be consistent. Now, if I want to be just everywhere and all that stuff, then I like, but I feel like this is what I want to do. And that's where I focused on.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's the way to go. I mess around with Instagram, and I have fun on Facebook. I don't do anything on Twitter, but I spend most of my time on LinkedIn because, like you, we're both in B2B, and that's where our customers are. That's where I'm going to connect with prospects and customers and grow a following, especially for my talent development podcast. And so that's where I feel like I need to spend my time. But I'm also, trying to give value in other places and help as much as I can. But it's good to hear that you don't have like a very serious strategy about this, because like I said, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just like learning from others and trying things every day. And it's so funny, the stories we tell ourselves about other people on social media, because every time I see anything that you post, I'm like, man, this guy is amazing. He's got it together. He's so focused on all the stuff he's doing. He's doing a million things, and he must have a strategy behind this. And you're like, no, I'm just opening this up and just trying stuff and seeing what happens.
Yeah, I mean, literally, all I have is honestly a virtual assistant who does some of the stuff for me in the sense like, hey, take this. I just spoke at this event, turn this into 2-minute clips. And then she'll give me 2 minutes clip, and then I'll look at, and as sometimes I will just write something that just inspired me at the work, or I'll put a video, but I'm just made a commitment to just do something daily. Because I feel like there is massive outcome at the end of the day when you do something as a habit, and you will learn. If you don't do it consistently, you're not going to learn at all. You would just give up too early, and that's what a lot of people unfortunately do. And it is not about how many likes and how many comments I'm going to get. It's more of like, I'm learning more about myself and what is it that I'm able to offer. And there's great conversation happen. Great. If nobody likes, that's great too, because guess what? Tomorrow morning, nobody's going to even know. And, you move on to it. So
that's right. That's true. We always think, and I have this fear too, like I put something out there and nobody really engages with it. Well, nobody really cared about it. And then the next thought is, well, they must hate me, right? Or like everyone is laughing at me now because they saw that I posted something and nobody liked it. No, nobody cares. Nobody looks at that stuff. I see stuff all the time that doesn't interest me, and I scroll on by and I never think about it again. And I have to remember that when I put stuff out there that doesn't get anything either. No one is judging me based on that. And I know that all the traction, just to kind of validate what you were saying, I know all the traction I've gotten on social media and the followers and everything is because of the consistency more than anything else. I've been putting stuff out there, posting on having the podcast for over 2 years, posting in LinkedIn nearly daily for a year and a half. It just builds over time. You've got to just keep consistently putting stuff out there.
Yeah, I'll tell you, like, the end, like it, and again, none of this was scripted. And I think if you script it, it's not going to happen. Let me just like the other way side, because it's just, it's the fun out of it. And you would be disappointed. But the good thing happened is because I was posting consistently, LinkedIn reached out and say, hey, can you help us produce a course now on LinkedIn on ABM? So I happen to do the very first course in account-based marketing on LinkedIn that they are now promoting to 100,000 plus people like on a regular basis. So like all that came, there was no amount of money I could have paid to LinkedIn to let me do that stuff. And here they are giving me money and help allowing me to be a thought leader in this space.
Yeah.
Didn't happen. So if you look at the ROI of just that, it's massive.
Yeah.
And,
It's huge.
right? So yeah.
And it's happening because you're consistently putting stuff out there, and because you focused more on the problem and the mission than promoting yourself. If you had been just promoting yourself the whole time, I'm sure they never would have asked you to do that. But because they see you being more mission based and someone that's really building community instead of commodity, like you said, then they want you to come be a part of that. So that's awesome. So keep doing what you're doing. But speaking of being promotional, I'll give you a chance to do that now. And for anybody listening who wants to follow you, learn from you, get in touch with you, where's the best place for them to go?
Well, I mean, we always talk LinkedIn. It's a great way to follow. Be part of a community. I think there's a lot of power in it. So if you could join the Flip Off on our LinkedIn community, we talk about a lot on marketing, sales, ABM. I just launched my second book on ABM is B2B, based on the lessons we have learned since the very first book and building a company in the last 4 or 5 years. So that's out on Amazon. People can pre-order, but it starts shipping on September 3rd.
Awesome. Well, we will put links to all that in the show notes. And Sangram, I want to thank you for coming on to share some of your story, your insights, and your wisdom with our listeners. I definitely enjoyed it and learned a lot, and I hope other people did as well. So thank you again for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for letting me vent a little bit and be open and transparent around things that I truly believe are important.
That's what we love around here. All right, man. Good luck. Take care.
Thank you.